I don't know how to, well, he'll have to mute on his end, I guess.
What do you want to fix for supper or anything?
Hey, Phil, we can hear you.
Okay. I got you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Today is Thursday, July 29th, 2020. Would everyone please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
Just stands. Justice for all.
Okay, we would be at roll call. Present, 2 absent.
Thank you.
Next is suspension of the rules.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell, in a second. Mr. Rosenbaum. Everybody know what this is about? Anybody need any help with that? All those in, oh, I'm sorry. Please vote.
Mr. Sulzer, you can tell me what you'd like to vote and we will punch you in.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Chairman Rand? Sixteen ayes.
Thank you.
Next would be citizens' remarks. Or, I'm sorry, approval of the minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes. Thank you, Mr. L. Sasser. And the second would be Dr. Blair. Welcome, Dr. Blair. Nice to see you. Any additions or corrections? Any material statements of fact needing correction? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Sulzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Chair would like to acknowledge Ms. Bryant is in attendance. Welcome, Ms. Bryant.
That would be 17 ayes. Next, we have citizen remarks. We only had one person send in an email to us. This is Elizabeth Cashman at 3810 North Pinecrest Court, Peoria. Dear members, once again, I speak to you regarding your decision to relocate Headington Oaks residents during this unprecedented pandemic. Your emotional hesitancy was appreciated, but in no way excuses the closure that was implemented. In retrospect, I find it even more baffling that while we were going through the ordeal, at the time, I was just concerned with my mother's well-being. Now I see the impact on all the residents and the community. It seems inconceivable that the Illinois Department of Public Health would authorize the release of these patients before the lockdown was lifted. Even some facilities I contacted would not allow a move at that time. You may write me off as a grieving daughter. I am. But I trusted my elected officials to act in the best interests with such a monumental arrangement. This is not personal. This is about public policy and the credibility of government standards, and protocol. The reason Headington Oaks was forced to close at such a time needs to be explained to the public. Sincerely, Elizabeth Cashman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Along with Chairperson Williams, we will devise an appropriate response to that letter and our condolences for the family. Madam Clerk.
Next would be consent agenda.
A motion to put the consent agenda on the floor from Mr. Rosenbaum and a second from Madam Daly in the back. Hello, Linda. Welcome. Nice to see you. Consent agenda. Any items that need to be pulled? Mr. Elsasser. C5. You bet. C5. Anyone else? You're around the room. Captain, you want to pull one? You're good? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and vote on everything except C5. Please vote.
Mr. Sulzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
That would be 17 ayes.
Thank
Let
you.
me add in the C.
Okay, we'll be back at
Aye.
C5. Get a motion to put C5 on the floor, please. Ms. Williams, and a second by Mr. Fennell. Mr. Sorrell,
Yes, sir.
would you provide the clarity, please, on C5?
Sure. So this is an ordinance that authorizes, which is the first step in the process of, the technical term is refunding the bonds for the construction of Headington Oaks. In layperson terms, it's refinancing of those bonds. Those bonds are callable, which means that we can refund or refinance those in the fourth quarter of this year. To be able to do that, we've got to tell the current bondholder and prospective buyers of the refinancing bonds that we intend to do that. And that's what this ordinance does tonight. It's puts the bondholders on notice that we're going to do that, or we intend to do that, and then any prospective bond folks that would want to buy those bonds this fall, that we're going to be doing that. That this fall is the earliest we can do it. We can obviously wait and see what happens with the referendum, and if there's a prospective buyer that comes about after the referendum. So, but the earliest that we could refund those bonds would be in the fourth quarter of this year. And this is the first document that is necessary in that process.
What's the likelihood of a better rate? I know that's why we're doing it, but how much better is the possibility?
Given the current interest rates in the bond market, we expect to see a substantial savings in the rate. We're also proposing that we will so that we can keep the annual bond payment within the 6-penny property tax levy. We're proposing that we likely extend the life of the bonds as well, which you're able to do through this process. If we just did what's called a footprint refunding, where we would only refund or refinance the remaining principal within the original term, even with the favorable interest rates where we're at, the principal is enough that the 6-penny levy will not be enough to make the bond payment. So we want to be able to make sure that we're not using any other sources of funds. We want to make sure that we only use that 6-penny levy for the bond payment on an annual basis.
How many years are we on right now as far as our schedule?
So the life of the current bonds is 30 years, and we're in year 10 right now. So that means we have 20 years remaining. We would expect to actually issue a new bond that would be a 30-year bond or thereabouts, depending on exactly where the interest rates come in.
Well, in comparing it to the housing market, usually when you go out further in the number of years, the rate goes up. would that be the case, compared to 20 years and 30 years?
So each year of the life of the bonds has a different coupon. For example, when these were issued, the coupons ranged from 3% to 4.5%. So it'll just be dependent upon what the municipal bond market looks like when we actually go to market.
And the administration will just make that decision and bring it back to the,
You'll have to approve the refunding itself. That'll be a separate approval item that this
Right.
body will make.
thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Ms. Pastusha.
And I don't know if this is a question for Scott or for someone else, Budget Committee Chair. Why are we deciding to extend our term?
If you don't extend the term, then the 6 penny property tax levy is not enough to make the bond payment.
Good. Anyone else? So, Mr. Sorrell, to help perhaps others understand some of the questions, Member Elsasser. Can you hear me, by the way? I can't hear myself. Okay. Some of the questions Member Elsasser was asking, we engage bond counsel for the purpose of assembling a proper document that ultimately is released for financial service organizations to present their offers to us.
Yes, so we actually use bond counsel that prepares all the legal documents. We also use financial advisors that are municipal bond financial advisors to structure the issuance that is most favorable to us. And those parties have already been engaged in the conversation. The bond counsel actually prepared the ordinance that you're voting on tonight.
So a follow-up question, Mr. Sorrell. One of the questions we will grapple with is whether we seek to issue bonds that are taxable or non-taxable.
That is correct, and so there will be an interest rate differential, but a tax-exempt bond limits our flexibility in terms of prospective purchaser going forward, but you get interest rate savings. If we do a taxable bond, then that gives us significant flexibility in terms of who a prospective buyer might be and who we could then sell to. But we expect to still see an interest rate savings from where we're currently at, but it would be a higher rate than a tax-exempt issuance.
So is it safe to say that the tax-exempt rate is between 15 and 25 basis points less than the taxable rate, or is that still a function of the yield?
It's probably in that range, but it depending on where the bond market is that day, we might get something better, but I would expect it to be that is a worst case scenario. We might get a greater differential, but I would expect the worst case scenario is that would be what the spread would be between a taxable and a tax exempt.
Mr. Elsasser.
We went through this 10 years ago, and forgive me for not remembering which do we have right now? We have the non-taxable, don't we?
So these are tax exempt bonds
Okay.
currently.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? I explored that just a little bit for y'all because I think that's going to be a rather material conversation. And I'm going to want to ask some board members to do some extra homework on that subject to help us all understand how the lines could get painted on the road between taxable and tax exempt. Part of the bond council's fee or cost to us, if I remember, is really a function of whether they're certified to be tax exempt documents. So the interest earnings would be non-taxable to the buyer of the bond. We would be the seller, of course. So there's some mechanics of that. Part of what bond counsel is doing is making sure for all of us, including the people buying the bonds, that in fact they would be tax exempt. It's a little cheaper, I think, in fees that we would pay to count bond counsel if they're taxable bonds. So there's fees for everything, but I'm bringing that up now, Scott, so you understand I know the play with bond counsel. We want to really have our house counsel look and examine the strategy to work with them, because there's two fees involved, two kinds. Thank you. All right, so C5, do we have it on the floor? I think it's on the floor. Anyone else? Thank you. Please vote.
Mr. Sulzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
17 ayes. Next, we'd be at zoning ordinance and resolutions. Number 1 is case number 022-20-S, petition of Peoria County, a text amendment to Chapter 20, Article 2, Section 2.2.6, hearing procedures, Article 3, Section 3.5, special use permits, Article 7, Section 7.18, cannabis business establishments, and Article 11, Section 11.1, definitions of the Peoria County Code. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval. The Land Use Committee concurs.
Thank you. Mr. Dillon, are you moving to put it on the floor? Thank you. In a second. Thank you, Mr. Renaud in the back. Welcome, Mr. Renaud. Nice to see you. Mr. Dillon, you have the floor.
Chairman, I can answer, Andrew can answer if anybody has questions, but this is cleanup language for the cannabis stuff that we've already passed, from stuff that had been repassed at the State House when they had done some cleanup language. So it's us just getting in compliance, cleaning up what they had said, and then one of the amendments. So this is actually us altering our own zoning stuff. So the other one was brought to us by an attorney that was on our planning and zoning, that we should have more recourse in legal fees if something happens. So we changed that. So those are the main points. So if you would like any more explanation, Andrew, our excellent staff, is here, so he could answer any more if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Elsas.
could you tell Phil that we sure love him, but ask him if he could mute his phone, maybe in between?
Sulzer?
Or is that what that noise is, or?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Elsasser, Mr. Salzer is a senior member of this board. I don't have the courage to ask him that.
But just tell him we love him first.
We only have a few items to go.
Hey, Phil, it's a little scratchy there. Why don't you put the phone down on the table?
I'm sitting in a chair.
You must be moving around or
Knew that was
something.
gonna happen.
We'll be able to
Okay.
hear him snore, right?
Madam Clerk,
We're ready for the vote.
please vote.
Mr. Sulzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
Like he's outside in the chirp.
17 ayes. Next would be number 2, case number 018-20-U, petition of Deborah Seelzer, a special use as required in section 20.5.2.2.1.A.1 of the Unified Development Ordinance. This section allows for a special use when a proposed land split does not meet the 25-acre minimum lot size, nor the one dwelling unit per 25 contiguous acres density requirement in the A2 agricultural district. The petition proposes to divide the existing 23.06 acre parcel into 3 parcels of approximately 13.6 acres, 8.7 acres, and 1 acre. The parcel is located in Rosefield Township. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends approval with restriction. The Land Use Committee concurs.
Thank you. And a motion to approve from Mr. Dillon and Mr. Elsasser. Thank you. Discussion. good? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Salzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
17 ayes. Next is item number 3, case W04-20, petition of Deborah Zilzer, a resolution from your Land Use Committee recommending approval of a waiver of compliance from Section 20-8.3.4.1.B.2.A of the Unified Development Ordinance. This section requires a new minor subdivision to have public water supply. The petitioner proposes to create a 3-lot subdivision with lots served by private well. The parcel is located in Rosefield Township.
Mr. Dillon is moving to approve. The second from Ms. Pastucia. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Salzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
17 ayes. Next would be suspension of the rules.
Council, could you give us a little help with this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, you'd be voting to suspend the rules for a proclamation to be voted on tonight that didn't come up through committee.
Thank you. Mr. Fennel on the first and Ms. Williams on the second to suspend. Please vote.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the first and the second. Or who made the
Mr.
motion?
Fennel
Fennel.
and Ms. Williams on the second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. There you go. Mr. Salzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
17 ayes.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Sorrell, one, why did we have to suspend the rules? And I mean, why did it come through committee? And two, what's the item about?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, would you like to get a motion and a second on the floor first?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Proclamation extending the declaration.
Thank you, Dr. Blair. And the second, thank you, Ms. Bryant.
So, this is a proclamation to not further declare, but to declare disaster under Section 7 of the Illinois Emergency Management Act here in Peoria County. This is critically important to facilitate any and all requests that we will be making to any federal or state agency for any reimbursement related to our response. It also specifically and only for COVID-related purchases does suspend Chapter 6.5 of the Peoria County Code, which is the centralized purchasing ordinance. And it directs the City County Health Department to continue implementing our emergency operation plan and our public health emergency plan in coordination with the City of Peoria and other applicable agencies of the state. And also to make sure that we're working in a coordinated fashion in the response to the global pandemic here in Peoria County. So these, you did this last month. These are under the Illinois Emergency Management Act are only valid for 30 days. So as long as we continue to have a response, we'll be doing these once a month.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. Any questions or discussion from members? Mr. Elsasser, then Mr. Rosenbaum.
No, this doesn't have anything to do with with us meeting the way we are for another 30 days, does it? This is mainly for the funding, isn't it?
Yes, it's more to keep the umbrella of disaster as the status so other things work.
Okay. So how long,
It's good
Only
for
reason
30,
I'm
this
doing-
is good for 30 days.
right, the only reason I'm asking this question is one of my constituents asked me how long that are we going to continue to meet like this? And I said probably until we feel safe, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's kind of a dumb answer, but
I think that's the scientific answer,
Yeah.
actually, so, thank you. Mr. Rosenbaum,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any idea how long, I know this can all change, but that we'll be doing this extension? I mean, do you have any hopes or goals of, just another month, 6 months, a year? Do you have any idea at all?
no, I don't, but I think it's pretty clear we're still on the front end of a pandemic of a novel virus that the human species hasn't encountered before. I think in talking to a physician earlier in the week, we are seeing mutations of the original that perhaps are not as virulent. Nonetheless, the spread continues and new populations continue to be infected in different parts of the country. And while the data is, one data point, 1 month says the fatalities are less relative to the number of positive cases, the positivity rate, that's the percentage of those tested, is shooting up in the 20% in some places, which is way off the charts. So I know everybody wants it to get back to normal, but I think we have to just expect that we're going to find ways to modify our procedures to make this less cumbersome for people. But I think mask wearing for sure, hand washing, social distancing, not sitting on top of each other, I think that's going to last for a while. Access to our building, I think that's a subject for the administrator to keep us up to date on, but this state of self-protection and protection of others around you, I think is a standard to expect for some time. And plus, I look good with these Clemson paw prints. Thanks, Paul.
you need an LSU mask, or can I find one somewhere?
Ouch, you pick one winner. You pick one. Go ahead. Let's see, so we have the item on the floor. Those were questions. Any others? Please vote.
Mr. Sulzer, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
17 ayes. We'd be at miscellaneous and announcements.
Oh boy, do we see a lot of announcements here. Wow, Miss Relaford, congratulations. Gosh, I could swear when we first met, way back when, that wasn't even on the drawing board, so you must be smitten. Congratulations. Also, Mr. Watkins, you're being recognized by all the Who's in Whoville, along with your bride Jackie, as legends. Well, I read the article in IBI. It's actually both of you. And congratulations. I think Legends is a relatively new product of IBI, recognizing yet another layer of Peoria's great leaders. And both you and Jackie have been identified as a couple, a pair, in this year's crop. And it's going to stream somehow on Zoom, because usually they get together at the Peoria Country Club and make jokes. I know, because I've been there to make jokes about some of them before. So congratulations. And starting on my left,
I
Ms.
likewise.
Duncan, how
I was
are
going to say
you?
the same thing as you. Congratulations to Mr. Watkins on that, making the cover, he and his wife, for the Peoria magazine. And certainly it provided much history, which I didn't know a lot about that part of it. But thank you. And you and Jackie, tell Jackie I said hello as well.
Yes, Junior was a baller, man.
Yes, he
He
was.
whipped up on
Yeah,
some
for
guys
sure.
on the court. Did I see your hand? In the back, Miss Daly, Mr. Renault. Okay, I'm coming around. Miss Williams. I see your hand. Okay. Miscellaneous, Mr. Dillon.
Congrats. Right, Alden. I wanted to say, not every day too you get to say you serve with a legend, and Junior is quietly, he never brags, takes credit. He just does it. You can't go into the DMV without seeing Jackie's smiling face, and everybody I feel in town knows her too. But I've learned a lot from Junior, especially when we've taken trips together. For a guy that has no cell phone, he knows everybody, and he's always in the right place at all the time, and he knows when to pop up. So, Junior, well-deserved. I really thoroughly enjoyed reading about that in there. And you and Jackie definitely are one of a kind, and Peoria's better for having you guys here. So, and thanks for bringing Jackie from Decatur. So she's done a lot of good here too. So, and really excited to see that. Part of the reason walking in here late was I was talking to that fine young gentleman out there that is engraving all those bricks down there. So that is done. They look wonderful. I've already taken some pictures and sent them to people. So that kid down there in today's heat and sitting down there still talking about how much he loved his job and being able to do that for people. Super nice kid. And thanks for getting that done. But he was really super pleasant to talk to and about how much it means us to do that for people. So thought that was cool.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Mr. Walking around the room here. Okay, infield. Really, that's it?
May I say something, Chairman Rand? May I say
Yes,
something?
please.
I just want to personally thank all of you for your cards, your emails, your text messages, your plants, your acts of kindness. It was very heartwarming, and I truly appreciate it for the loss of my son. So I just wanted to thank you.
Our prayers continue to be with you and your family, Rachel. If Rachel is not available for a Star Spangled Banner a cappella, then Jackie is always a very suitable backup, right? Okay. It's unbelievable, these two ladies singing a cappella. I also want to thank from the diocese here in downtown Peoria, my good friend and somewhat socialite, Sister Julie Enzenberger from my Clemson wear. That's a shameless promotion of the diocese, and Sister Julie, who's been working hard here for the bishop for many years. Thank you, Julie. Having no other business and no executive session tonight, we will be adjourned. Thank you.
And before you leave, I'm going to have you sign all of these.
Great.
Thanks, Bill. We'll talk to you.
I think if you'll do a little blocking and tackling on bond council's framework, that whole boots, belts, and suspenders shit related